display class name. So we're going to do class name just like this, and we're going to call it emoji counter for the outer div of our work. And then let's just have a header just to have a little title, emoji counter. Okay, and actually, if you Google emoji smiley face, this you can just copy and paste one of these. But I'm just going to put this here because I'm going to use it later inside of our counter, and it'll be easy to grab. So our header, and then we want to display a count. So let's put that inside of a div, and let's do another class name called count or smile count. And then this right now is not going to actually show a count. It's just going to show the text count because we haven't created the count yet. So then we have this area, which is our title, where our count will live, and then we are going to need 2 buttons, which since we have multiple buttons, we want to put them inside of a div. So let's move these up, and let's give this a class name of buttons. Okay, so our first button is going to be add emoji. That's what we're going to do with that button. And then the second button is going to be remove emoji. Okay, so right now this is just UI. Let's just visually see what this looks like. Okay, great. So this is what our application looks like now. Our component has a title, it has text that is going to read count, and it has these buttons that are currently not doing anything, but they exist. So the first thing that we want to do is let's create a counter. So in order to create a counter, we are going to need to manage state. So useState is a hook that hooks into our data and our component in React in order to manage the state. So the way that we do that in React is that we have to import the hook useState. And again, we're going to get a warning. It's declared, but it's never read. It's never used, but we're about to use it. So our hooks have to live inside of our functional component. They cannot live outside of our functional component. And they take 2 arguments. The first argument is the item, the data that we are managing, that we are viewing and displaying. And in this case, it's called count. And the second one is the function that will alter our first argument. So in this case, it's called set count. That is the function that we will call to alter count. And then the rest of this is we have called useState, and then this argument is our default. So what would you like it to start at? We're gonna choose 1, which means that whenever we call count, it's gonna always start at 1. So now that we have this data point right here, it's also going to give us another warning. So you can see that this one went away now because we're using it here. So like I said before, the way that we display data or objects or anything in React in JSX is by putting it in curly brackets. So we can call count this way. And So now what we want to do is we want to call, let's see what it looks like. So count is now set to 1. If we click on this, we can see that we have a hook that has state, and it is set to 1 like we did before. If we click on these buttons, they are not doing anything, and we're not in a bad place right now. We are going to get a warning because we're not using this yet, but we're about to use it. So what we want to do next is we want to be able to make it so that when we click this button, it alters this. And when we click this button, it also alters it. So the way that we do that in React is we have to use an event handler. And it's just like we've done before in the HTML and JavaScript projects, but the syntax is a little bit different. So to add an event handler in here is we use an onClick event handler, and then we are going to create a function. And since it's an event handler, the syntax starts with handle. So what is this going to handle? It's going to handle an add. So we are creating a function called handle add, and when this button is clicked, it is going to call this function handle add. And so let's create this function because it doesn't exist right now. So const handle add equals so I'm going to pause here for a second because I just want to mention that. So we have a button. When we click it, it's going to call the function handle add. And inside of handle add, what we want to do is call this function from our state hooks called set count. So set count, and then that is going to take the argument of count. And then what we want to do is add 1. Okay, great. So far, now we're not getting a warning for this because it's being used. Let's go into our application and just check on that. Let's see if it adds emojis. Or if it adds a count. We haven't added the emoji yet, just a count. So we click on this, and we can see that our count is being incremented. And if we check on our component React developer tools, we can see that inside of hook state, it's also incrementing. So this is a really good sign. It's a sign that we initiated our state and that we are doing it properly. But if we click remove emoji, it's obviously not working because we haven't created a function, a handler for this button, which is what we're going to do next. So the same thing that we did here on click, we're going to use the same handler, and instead of handle add, we're going to do handle remove. This is going to give us a warning. It's not defined. We're going to go up here, const handle remove, the same thing we did before. We're going to do set count, and then count -1. Okay, and let's check on this now. So we're still adding, it's still altering the state here. And then we can remove now. We're removing our count. Let's remove. And then now we get to our default 1. And then if we press it one more time, we get to 0. And then now we're going to negative numbers. But we don't want that because we don't want negative smiley faces. We created our default for our count to be 1. So let's add a conditional here that will make it so that we can never go lower than 1. So if count is greater than 1, then, set count. So let's check on that again. Let's refresh our page. Add, state, remove, and it doesn't go further than 1, so our conditional is working properly. So, okay, so let's go back to our notes really quick. So far, we have gotten started with React. We have utilized useState to manage state in React. We have handled user interactions using onClick. And pretty much the thing that we have left is we have to add our smiley faces. Right now it's just a counter, it doesn't add any smiley faces. And to do that, we are going to use some functions that we've already gone over that we've definitely used by now. We're going to use map. And we are going to use fill to create this functionality. So what we want to do here, we have a div for our smile count that's displaying the count, and then let's create a new div underneath our count. So this div is going to have a class name also, and this is going to be our emoji display. It's going to be where we output all of these. And so what we want to do here is we want to create an array, and we want to initialize the spaces in this array based on our count. And then after we have the spaces in the array, we want to fill it. And what we want to fill it with is our smiley faces. And then the way that we are going to display all of these inside of our application is we are going to create span HTML elements for each and every smiley face. So in order to do that, we have to use map, and map is going to go through each element inside of our array that we just created and create span elements. Oh, sorry, I did something. I missed a little bracket here. So, okay, so here we want to create a span element, and we want to add our emoji. And let's just look at it now. Let's see. We have something else that's missing, but let's look at to see what it looks like. Okay, so we add, and you can see that it's creating span elements. And if we inspect this, just so we can visually see it, we can see that it's creating span elements here. Remove, 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 and it's doing the same thing. The one thing that I noticed though is that we are getting a warning here. Let's go back to our component. So we're getting a warning here, and it says error. Each child on a list should have a key prop. So the reason that we need the key prop is because React needs access to anything in a list in order to alter it, and it needs to know that each item is unique so it can know what to alter. And in this case, it's warning us that it needs a unique key. Luckily, we have an index, and we can use our index as a key. So let's key index. And let's look at it now. Let's refresh our page. Emoji.